Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Afri Abundance. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a quick run through for another section in my Remember Who You Are African Ancestry Study Guide that I've been discussing on my channel. Oops. Got a lot of books here within this binder, so it is definitely time to upgrade to a larger binder for this one. So in this section, this one is talking about victory. And I'm just going to go through and read what the exercises are and then give an overview of what my answers are and just kind of go over how I feel about this topic. So in this exercise, it's asking us to kind of think through some things regarding your identity and your history, your lineage, and how to honor it. So it says, looking back on your responses throughout this Remember Who You Are study guide, how will you honor your family's legacy? So I feel like that is a very kind of deep question, because I don't think there's just one answer that you can provide on how you can honor your legacy. But in the full stream, I think I could give, kind of a basis of, some things that I can do to honor that legacy. So I feel like when it comes to the journey that I've been on, really becoming more deeply rooted into my African ancestry, learning about who my people were beyond, beyond the shores, beyond, what I know, I feel like honoring that legacy entails, just kind of the continuance of, connecting within the community, learning more about, the cultures, honoring the languages, and really living your life in a way that ultimately honors, your ancestors. It's not just, I feel, in my opinion, you honor those who are alive, but you honor those who are, passed on to the next life as well, i.e. grandparents, great grandparents, those that you knew, those that you didn't know. I feel like honoring them is also very important to grounding yourself in your identity. So I feel like that would be kind of a short form of my answer for this section. Now, the next question is kind of similar to this one, but it's kind of worded differently. So it's asking, how will you nurture your contribution to the legacy? So the first one states, how will you honor your family's legacy? But this one is asking, how will you nurture your contribution to the legacy? I feel like in the topic of nurturing of the legacy, like I, kind of said before, it kind of runs into the same answer that I gave for the first one. I feel like in the sense of nurturing, is learning. You have to learn, gain a higher understanding, make connections with people who are, from these places that, as an African in the diaspora, that you are, seeking to know more about. So, I feel like nurturing it in the way of, learning about, the people and their lived experiences today, and traveling to the continent and, trying to lay those roots in order to nurture it, right? You have to water those roots. You have to nurture those, plants, so to speak. So I feel like, for me, that's what would be entailed to nurturing. So I really like that one. Victory is a huge word for me. I feel like honoring, yourself, having enough valor and dignity to live your life authentically for who you are and not for who others have set you to be is crucial and critical to your not only your spiritual health but your mental health, your physical health, and your psycho spiritual health, because as many people who are in the field of holistic studies, learning about holism and understanding that you as a whole are bound by your spirit, you're bound by your environmental health, you're bound by, a whole plethora of things that come together to make you the person that you are. So I feel like in order to really truly live as your whole self in the spirit of holism, knowing your roots and knowing who you are and where you come from and how that makes your identity is very important. So I'm just going to go through and kind of share some of these other sections. There's a lot of history in here that can be learned that kind of go beyond the African American experiences through slavery, which I think is very important because, like it states before, in that victory, you have to kind of connect those roads together from here and there in order to really understand the journey, how you came to be who you are, how many different phases of our ancestors and areas they went through and periods in their lives where things changed for them and it was forcibly changed. So I feel like in order to truly be authentic, you have to understand that there were many phases they went through. There were many languages that they were forced to speak. There were many layers of them that were peeled back physically and psychologically that we have to understand in order to really get to our roots. We have to peel back all of these layers that were placed upon us as a people. So there's just a lot of historical facts in here. It talks about a lot of, the resources, that exist within the continent, why it is such a hot spot for the world. And it's just a really good study point for anyone who wants to know truly what is it about Africa that keeps people coming back. How is it that they can state that this is the poorest continent, but they are there taking from the continent? You don't steal from the poor. You don't steal from those who are impoverished. So it's an interesting fact to know. Then why are you there? What are you doing there? What are you gaining from here? It's a complete fallacy when you really look into the background of how things are being blindly taken away from our people. I love how it teaches you a lot about, the different countries, what is the hottest, resource there. Rwanda would be, whether it be oil, iron, cobalt. Nigeria has, a lot of oil, things like cobalt, cashew nuts, uranium, lots of things that we find very minimal that are very much exploited within the continent that I find to be very disheartening. So I'm just going to read this section here about greatness. I'm not going to make this video too long, but I just wanted to read this because I feel like it is very deep and powerful. So Africa, aka the motherland, or as many of us know within this diaspora as Alkebulan, is the cradle of civilization. The first humans are recorded in Africa more than 5 million years ago. Today, it is home to over 1.3 billion people, about 16% of the world's human population. Alkebulan's legacy is one of being rich in natural resources, holding approximately 30% of the world's known mineral reserves. These resources include cobalt, uranium, coltan, gold, cocoa beans, diamonds, oil, and natural gas. So I find it, like I said before, interesting how, the continent is so poor and their societies are crumbling, but these are the resources that you come for. And it just doesn't make any sense. However, I think in order to understand your true self, you have to understand the history and the real reason why people exist there, and there is such an overhaul of power being forced upon our people, even today. So for anyone who really wants to narrow down their historical learning, really focus in on specific pieces of history that you can truly understand and develop over time, because there are so many things that we don't understand. And once you really start learning, you'll really appreciate more. You'll develop more gratitude. You'll develop more grace for your fellow Africans in the diaspora within America who are immigrants. You'll be a little bit, kinder, a little bit more welcoming and less judgmental of who they are and the things that they've experienced in their homelands. So like I said in my last video, I will definitely leave resources for where you can find information about, different countries within Africa. I have so many resources for learning about even my own people, the Mende in Sierra Leone, and learning, my history and what my foremothers, fought through and how they persevered. So I definitely will leave some links below where you can find credible sources of information. It's very important to find credible sources of information. There's so much misinformation about the continent as a whole. So making sure that you are looking at things that are, made from credible people is definitely going to help in your studying journey. One more piece that I wanted to share. I did find a website that kind of just talks about the history of my people in general, the Mende, all of the different tribes within Sierra Leone. So there, it's not just one group of people. The Mende are kind of a subgroup of people who migrated from another country down to Sierra Leone and became a part of the continent. But even for my people in my maternal lineage, we didn't derive from Sierra Leone specifically. So when you look at the history of the Mende, you'll see there's a lot of us who came from Mali. So you'll see here, you'll see the Temne, you'll see the Loco, you'll see the Sherbo, you'll see, like I said, the Mende. You'll learn about the history of the Mende and how we were not truly the native inhabitants of Sierra Leone. You'll learn about the Limba, the Soso, the Karanko, and lots of groups that, a lot of people otherwise didn't know. There's the Yalunka, the Kono, the Vai. There are lots of people within even this country that the history is very much unknown. So I definitely will provide some resources for where, I gathered all of these from. And yeah, I hope for anyone who enjoys this content, please give it 2 thumbs up. As I'm always stating in my videos, I'm always learning new things. When I started my journey, like I said, I, kind of looked through my first ancestry DNA test and kind of figured out, we're so spread out with who we are. And then taking the African ancestry DNA test really narrowed it down. So, like I said before, we in the diaspora are mixed Africans. Being mixed, as I've stated on multiple occasions, doesn't mean only with the opposing race or, ethnicity and color. Africans are mixed race people. We're mixed with, like in my estimates here, with Nigerian, Cameroonian, Congolese, Western Bantu, Mali, Benin, Togo. I have Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Senegal. So there's a lot that we are mixed with that we have to understand. There are so many things that we have to be proud of and should walk with our heads high upon, because these were some of the richest countries in the world, and we should definitely lift up our people and be a bridge, be a water well for others who want to reconnect with themselves. I hope you all enjoyed this video. As I stated before, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more DIYs, recipes, and reviews. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching.